My name is Natasha, and the social issue that our group will be discussing is mass incarceration, and we will be focusing on the practice of forensic social work at the micro level. Mass incarceration is an extremely relevant issue today and is a topic at the forefront of policy reform to alleviate jail and prison overcrowding. Forensic social work is being practiced at the micro level in the courts in order to reduce the reliance of incarceration, thus reducing the amounts of individuals being incarcerated. We are focusing on mass incarceration at the micro level because it is important to keep individuals out of prisons and jails in order for them to benefit from rehabilitative services as opposed to the existing punitive system of incarceration, in order for people to maintain a higher quality of life, to keep families together, and to eliminate racial and social disparities. By the year 2000, the U.S. prison population rose by 5 times its population in the early 1970s due to the war on drugs and the war on crime. According to the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics, over 2 million adults were incarcerated in the U.S. federal and state prisons. In October 2013, the incarceration rate of the United States was the highest in the world, at 716 per 100,000 of the national population. While the United States represents about 4.4% of the world's population, it houses around 22% of the world's prisoners. Additionally, just about 5 million adults in 2013 were on probation or on parole. The issue of mass incarceration has disproportionately affected black and brown men from disadvantaged neighborhoods due to the military-style policing that began to take place during the war on drugs and the war on crime, and has massive amounts of people out of school, work, and family life. As inmates are released from jails or prisons with criminal convictions, or as ex-felons are immersed into the community, their criminal records hinder their ability to find employment, disenfranchises them, and disqualifies them from benefiting from public housing and other social programs. The aggregate effects of mass incarceration on substantially contributes to social and economical disadvantages, and further maintains racial and social inequalities. One example of the work a forensic social worker at the micro level might do is that of the work of social workers at the Alameda County Public Defender's Office. Their job is to advocate for individuals who have been charged with felonies in order to not only humanize them in court as they go through the pretrial and the adjudication process, but they are also in charge of making strong referrals to community-based social service agencies, ensure that clients' needs for treatment are adequately addressed, provide expertise to help judges and attorneys understand clients' circumstances and life stories, contribute to early release from jail by providing alternatives to incarceration, and strengthen legal outcomes. Social workers in the Public Defender's Office are essential in linking the clients to services throughout their criminal case and easing the transformation from incarceration to living and working in the community. In their advocacy role, they highlight clients' life stories for the court in order to identify appropriate alternatives to incarceration, including addiction and mental health treatment programs. Additionally, the social workers provide crisis intervention and support clients in finding housing, employment, and continuing their education. They also help inmates enroll in classes while in custody and have developed a program to give children's clothing to clients in need. Studies have shown that the use of reentry social workers can result in a significant reduction of prison sentences for reentry clients and increases an alternative jail sentencing, which can prevent incarceration altogether.
My name is Karen, and I'm going to talk about the values and ethics of social work. The National Association of Social Workers explains 6 core values and ethics that social workers should understand and honor in order to provide their clients with the best service possible. Our first value is service. Social workers' primary goal is to help people in need and to address social problems. Our second value is social justice. Social workers challenge social justice. Our third value is dignity and worth of the person. Social workers respect the inherent dignity and worth of the person. Our fourth value is importance of human relationships. Social workers recognize the central importance of human relationships. Our fifth value is integrity. Social workers behave in a trustworthy manner. And our last value is competence. Social workers practice within their areas of competence and develop and enhance their professional expertise. So, for our project, we focus on 3 of these values and ethics. The first one is going to be dignity and worth of the person. With this value, we're going to make sure that our clients gain confidence and hope after being through a process where they have been criminalized, humiliated, and treated in a demoralizing way. As mentioned before, some of the community services can include education, housing, and employment, which will empower our clients to be part of their own solution and address their own needs. Our second value is going to be importance of human relationships. According to Professor Victor Rios, individuals who have a criminal record are stigmatized by the community, employers, and sometimes even their own families. It is essential for the social worker to show the client genuine respect by demonstrating them that he or she is there to provide resources and not to make them feel inferior. By providing them with resources in the community, the social worker is facilitating new connections in the social atmosphere of the clients. Over time, clients' ecological system will be restored and they will be active members of the community. Our third and last value is competence. Researchers Alexis, Heather, and Catherine explain that those accused of felonies are denied Social Security income, general assistance, public and federally assisted housing, and food stamps, which means that these individuals are left on the street with no resources. The work of social workers, as mentioned earlier, is to be competent and know the community based resources that can help their clients thrive through difficult times. In our research, we found that there can be an ethical dilemma regarding the value of social justice and the ethical principle of social workers challenge social justice. This value and ethical principle can be a dilemma because for individuals who have been charged with a felony, the welfare system denies them many of their citizen rights, such as food stamps, public housing, and social security income. Our own system has punitive policies that leave out people who need resources. Since the welfare system is not an option, the solution can be concentrated in referring our clients to more community services that can meet the many needs that they have. These community services should ensure that our clients enjoy a rehabilitation process in an environment without stigmas and restrictions. The other option can be through the process of humanization. Social workers can find a way to redirect clients to mental health facilities or rehabilitation programs instead of prisons or jails, which can help them avoid charges that limit their eligibility for social welfare programs.
My name is Frances McGinley, and I'm going to be discussing some of the social work skills at our primary level of practice. It is critical for social workers serving incarcerated people who have been labeled and demonized by society to have open minds and maintain unconditional positive regard for their clients. Social workers must be in touch with their values and have a high degree of self-awareness in order to make sure they are not letting internalized biases interfere with their ability to effectively serve clients. There may be instances when assisting someone who has been accused of a crime is particularly difficult, but it is important that the social worker separates any negative feelings they have about the crime committed from the person they are tasked with supporting. Upholding the value and dignity of human beings is an ethical imperative for any social worker, and this is especially true when engaging in micro-level practice with folks who have been charged with crimes. In micro-level practice, social workers must always employ strengths-based approaches, but this is even more critical when working with people who have been arrested or convicted of a crime. Likely, these people are dealing with a range of different needs that contributed to their arrest, like poverty, homelessness, drug abuse, and more. Because these folks have very limited resources, it is up to the social worker to identify the strengths the client does bring to the table and help the client leverage these strengths to get their basic needs met, in addition to directly connecting them with other assistance resources. This will improve their livelihood, as well as statistically better their chances for receiving a lesser sentence. Having a high degree of competence is necessary when interacting with the criminal justice system as a micro-level practitioner. There are many different complicated legal practices as well as policy impacts that forensic social workers need to be aware of to design effective interventions. In this setting, being competent also means employing effective interviewing skills and possessing the ability to distill and communicate complicated information to clients and outside players in a way that all parties will understand. Social workers must have a strong grasp of cultural humility and consider their clients' backgrounds when interviewing them and planning interventions. The exact same intervention may have completely opposite impacts on two clients charged with the same crime because they were brought up differently and have very dissimilar lifestyles. Social workers must take this into account and not prescribe the same solution for every client. Workers must also have an understanding of how the policing system disproportionately targets minorities and how this disadvantage is reproduced in sentencing guidelines and the court system. Social workers can use this knowledge to influence judges, lawyers, juries, and prosecutors to make more equitable decisions and challenge their assumptions about their clients. A forensic social worker has responsibilities to many different stakeholders and must effectively work with the public defender's office, their client, judges, lawyers, and community resources to develop effective interventions. This often involves navigating competing needs and differing priorities. For instance, a prosecutor might have an incentive to make a harsh conviction for a drug-related crime, but the social worker knows that their client needs substance abuse treatment rather than prison time to successfully re-enter society. Convincing the prosecutor that the client deserves a lesser punishment can be a difficult situation to navigate because the worker is inherently at odds with the prosecutor. This takes patience, empathy, persuasion, and tact. Sometimes a social worker's obligations to their client can come into conflict with their obligations to their agency. Some assistance programs disqualify offenders based on established criteria, despite the fact that the worker knows their client needs this program in order to stop reoffending. This can create complex ethical dilemmas where the social worker's primary value of being of service is challenged by another value of integrity. It would be wrong to lie to the agency to get their client services, but it also feels wrong to send the client away without any help. Finally, a challenge a forensic social worker working with offenders may face is reconciling a client's right to self-determination even after they have done everything they can to help prevent a client from reoffending or making decisions that will negatively affect them in court. Ultimately, the social worker does everything they can to support their client, but they are not responsible for their decisions.
I'm Sherlyn, and I'm going to be talking about the meso and macro level of social worker skills that are relevant to mass incarceration and how these two skills can manifest within the field of forensic social work. In order for forensic social workers to address the issue of how to go about the handling of mass incarceration upon individuals on a meso and macro level, social workers must first acknowledge that such issue exists and has shown to be a recurring problem. The social worker most definitely needs to have the mindset that he or she must seek help, which consists of involvement from the community members within a neighborhood, while also using proper interpersonal skills. This is extremely important and essential to be able to communicate with others in order to problem solve. In fact, each level has a separate and special need in order for it to work in the way in which the social worker intends for. For example, while we address the meso level of approaching the mass incarceration of citizens, we know that the family unit or the individuals who are affected aren't at all involved. It is that of the institutions such as schools, community-based programs, churches, and maybe even employment agencies that can try to help and possibly come to some sort of a solution to encourage and change life outcomes of each of its members before reaching the end result of incarceration. Perhaps creating a program that allows employment of members no matter what crime they have committed, as long as rehabilitation has been shown, the inmate or ex-felon has not been involved with criminal acts for a set time frame, and drug testing as means of employment. However, these programs will employ those community members who were products of the judicial system to act in roles of mentors to others who they see heading down the path of incarceration. Possibly going to high schools and speaking with youths yearly would be another form of meso level. Society suffers criminal violence when the community has acts brought out against the neighborhoods due to whatever the reasons are. On the meso level, this is where the churches and members of the law, social workers, and policymakers need to come together to get to the root of the issue and make laws to help reestablish order in the poor neighborhoods. This will hopefully bring about change in order to be a more desirable environment to live in. Having to face higher costs of living in certain areas also is a means in which an increase in crime and violence among members of the community, especially in poor marginalized communities, are penalized. Having to face higher costs of living in certain areas also is a means in which an increase in crimes and violence among members of the community, especially in poor marginalized communities, are penalized when criminals are penalized upon release. And this is due because of less of skill and no means of work or jobs being outsourced. Perhaps when it comes to the meso-level approach, social workers and community members could band together and create a partnership with local agencies and promote those employment agencies that seek to hire members in society who have violent acts of crimes in their records, and those who are not so violent. This could produce a more self-reliant individual, creating a better environment for the community. At the level in which the macro approach is used, we know that social workers advocate to seek social justice by going the route of reaching the highest approach possible, that is, the local or state governments. The macro level also promotes the implementation of policy reforms, designs such as special types of courts to try to help in implementing and minimizing criminal outcomes for individuals. Homeless, drug, probation, and juvenile courts are examples. These are some ways to reduce retention back to prison population. Also at the macro level, the public defender can aim to recommend certain aspects of punishments to be some form of a charity involvement. This will hopefully create a better person for his or herself as well. Programs from public defenders and attorneys in Alameda County formed partnerships, seeking out youth in high schools to educate them on learning their rights in California, the LYRIC. Government putting propositions on voting ballots such as Prop 47, which allows for reduction of felony to misdemeanor, depending on the type of crime committed. These are sure ways of helping to reform a person in hopes of lessening reincarceration. The macro level also is a way to make sure that the system outcomes are evaluated and works. We're taught that each system is affected by whatever happens to another system, and each system is greater than the sum of its parts.